we're diving into 4 key strategies to help you unlock the freedom and creativity of modal jazz. So whether you're new to improvisation or just looking to refine your skills, this is the perfect tune with its lush harmonies and flowing vibe to help you do that. Let's dive in and get started. So the first thing we need to do in a tune like this is master or internalize the chord changes. It shifts a lot and there's no real traditional harmony here. So if you take a look at A section from C minor to A flat, back to C minor, and then there's a 2-5 of G, and then there's a 2-5 of G flat, and then a 2-5 of E flat, to C minor. Those are not consistent chord changes. It's very different in that regard. So I think the best way to do this is to take a look at what we call the chord tones. So let's start with the C minor chord. The chord tones are E flat and B flat, and move down to A flat, where the chord tones are C and G flat, back to C minor, and then a 2-5 of G, so A minor to D7 to G major 7. And then the 2-5 of G flat is A flat minor to D flat 7, and then the 2-5 of E flat is F minor to B flat. So just work on those chord changes, hitting the chord tones. So personally, I think that's a great way of memorizing the chord changes. Really take a look at those chord tones, because later on, when we get to the next steps, even in step number 2, is you're going to have to focus on those chord tones when you solo. So step 2 of our strategy to play better modal jazz is to develop what we call melodic phrasing. Now, unlike traditional bebop, which is fast runs and connected chords, modal jazz tends to float and be a little more forgiving when it comes to actually hitting the perfect bebop lick. I would suggest that you focus on crafting melodies that breathe and float over top of the shifting tonal centers, long flowing lines versus short bebop licks. So the initial chord changes of the first 4 bars are, remember, C minor 7 to A flat, back to C minor, and then a 2-5 of G. So where beboppers might play something like this, a modal player would kind of float a little bit more on top of that with longer sort of flowing lines, not necessarily all eighth notes, but a mixture of different rhythms. And you really need to use your ears on this. This is not something that's going to come naturally, because if you're used to playing bebop and you know those lines solidly, it's a little different approach for sure. All right, let's take a quick break from the music and we'll get back to it in a second, but I wanted to ask you if you could just reach down, hit the little thumbs up button. It really helps us here at the channel and helps this video reach more viewers. And if you'd like to subscribe, we'd love to have you just hit the bell and we'll notify you of all the upcoming tutorials that we're making. Let's take a look at the 4 bars preceding B section. So we've got C minor 7 to C minor over B flat, and then a 2-5 of G. And then to G major, and this is where we get that G pedal happening. And the chord changes, but the bass note stays the same. So what I would suggest is in the 4 bars going into B section, we do the same strategy as before. And then when we get to G, it's kind of the same idea, except we've got this pedal note. So in your left hand, you might put down fifths. And then when the chord changes, just spell the chord instead of playing flowing lines. I mean, yes, you're going to play lines, but they're not modes. They're more like chords. So switch from the 4 bars coming into B section from modes to chords. So all we're doing when we hit B section is we are spelling the chords. So G major 7 to D minor to A to F, which is what a G sus4 means, kind of like F over G. Okay, so let's play those two together again from 4 bars before B. So if we were to play that more in time and play it swing, as the tune suggests, we would start on the C minor chord like this. You get the idea? So every time you see a pedal note in the tune, it's a good idea to arpeggiate the chords over top of that. That's a really simple trick to kind of catch the idea of the chord without actually knowing what the mode is. I also might suggest that when you practice, you record yourself doing those ideas and listen back to it. You always learn more when you listen to your own recordings. And a little bit later on, I'm going to be putting a link to the sheet music that we're using in this tutorial, which is a complete arrangement for solo piano of Dolphin Dance that doesn't exist anywhere else. I'll put that link up a little bit later on in the video. So the next strategy I want to introduce to you, which is our third strategy for covering modal tunes, is to explore the associated chord-scale relationship. Now, what that means is while the tonal center completely shifts from key to key, the chord structure associated with that shift also has modes that are played over top of the chords. That means that for every chord, even 2 5s that exist in a single bar, they have a mode associated with that. My suggestion to you is that you explore a single mode for each chord. Now, I've scrolled the sheet music to the C section where we have this E flat 7 chord to A minor and then B minor. So let's just focus on those 4 bars. So E flat 7, if you take a look at the chord structure, it's really an E flat 7 sharp 11, which means F over E flat. So that means the mode that you use would be Lydian because it contains a natural 4. So like this. And really hear that sharp 11. All it is really is a B flat scale. So a B flat major scale. So that's the mode that you would play over E flat 7. And really learn that mode. So a typical E flat major chord contains the flat 4, which is a very different mode. It sounds like it really has a tonal center where This one really floats a lot. Then when you get to A flat minor 7, figure out what the mode is associated with that. In this particular case, I would suggest that it is a Dorian scale because it's leading to G major. So it contains an F sharp. So then what I would suggest is that you play the modes for those two chords together. So you can hear there's no real tonal center. It's just kind of flowing lines. So it's really important to at least pick a mode for each of those chords. So then move on to the B minor 7th chord and again pick a mode. Really, it's just a D major scale. Then again, go back and put all three of those together. Then, of course, when you get to the E7 chord, it's a little bit different. Maybe then spell the chord in that particular case. Then D minor. And so on and so forth. So again, the strategy here is to at least know what one single mode or scale is for every chord in the tune. So this will build some fluency in your playing with matching the harmonic intent with melodic ideas. The last strategy that I wanted to introduce to you is something called rhythmic flexibility. Now, in bebop, we're used to playing eighth notes, right? Get the idea. In modal jazz, we have a lot of flexibility with the rhythm. In fact, it's a good idea to introduce syncopation, different types of rhythms, eighth notes, half notes, quarter notes mixed together with triplets, things like that. So I really encourage you to explore different rhythms and really start to think about the time that's going by and creating some rhythmic flexibility in your playing. So for example, let's stay on C section where we've got this E flat 7 chord, and then to A minor, and then to B minor, to E7, D minor to C minor. Okay, let's just focus on that chord progression for a second and think about some rhythmic ideas. So again, we might have introduced a little bit of bebop in there, but you can see there was some eighth notes, some triplets, lots of space, things like that. Maybe even slow it down even more and put more space between the notes. So for example, okay? So practice with a metronome or a backing track if you need to, but really focus on locking in the groove and feel the push-pull against that metronome or backing track and feel the rhythm in it and really let yourself loose a little bit when it comes to rhythmic interpretation. Let's go back to the top of the tune and explore it from the beginning, and let's see how I interpret some of the ideas that we've talked about today. Okay, there's a little Dolphin Dance. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to put a link to the sheet music that I've been talking about in this tutorial and showing you on your screen. It's over there in the corner. It's also in the description below, and I'm going to throw up a coupon code on your screen so that you can get it for a pretty significant discount. And if you're looking for a part 1 of this tutorial, which talked about how to play this arrangement, which is very unique, it's a solo piano arrangement of Dolphin Dance that I did myself, you can check that tutorial out next. It is right here.